Well, here we are. Put the headphones back on and kind of a casual lunch session with a couple of folks that I've seen hanging out here. Yeah, Barbara, to answer your question, if you're listening, yes, and I'll do that directly. On stage. Let's see who else we have here. There we are. Invited up here. Okay, well, we have two, maybe three people. Let me see here. For private chat here. Oh, there we go. I hear sounds. Oh, Barbara.
Hi there.
It's good to see you. I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me go on and briefly introduce. We may have one of the person who said yes. She's around and was a little reluctant to talk about, here's how I do it. But it's just kind of a friendly chat among humorists of, kind of where you're at, how you work, what you hope your work will do, how you connect with people, what we can do to help you. I've mentioned that in the past weeks, I've been looking to do something that provides some continuity after the conference, a place where people can meet and hang out for no charge. We have some stuff in Facebook groups, but also something on the blog itself where people could trade pages and have it be a little more private behind the scenes. So why don't you, Barbara, why don't you go on? I'm going to pull myself kind of down in the corner. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and then we'll pivot over to Lisa, and we'll see if our third potential person is here. So let me see here. I need to. There we go. I'm going to hide in the corner, but I'm still here. I'll unmute my microphone too. So go for it, Barbara.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am retired, something that I thought I would never do. I thought I'd retire 20 years after my death. I really am a workaholic, and I've had many, many, many careers. Among them, I was a freelance writer for about 25 years, writing mostly for local newspapers, parenting magazines, and other publications around Richmond, Virginia, some national credits as well. But the stuff that I like writing most is personal essays, and my life is both tragic and funny, and I try to see the humor in everything. So my favorite kind of writing is personal essays that are somewhat humorous, based on my experiences. And I hardly exaggerate at all, although my son would argue with me on that point. That's it.
Okay, that's a nice way of leading us into what you do. And Lisa, welcome. Good to see you here. I see that you have, and I'm going to be asking this is where we can connect with you. You've got your handle or your tag on Medium. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing, what you
Sure,
hope to
yeah.
do?
Thanks for having me, Rob, and hi, Barbara, and everyone else. My name is Lisa Pertoso, and I am a humor and satire writer, and I post most of if they're published on other sites, they still go through my Medium page, so that's kind of where I can put everything in one place as a portfolio. When I'm not writing, I'm also in front of groups, facilitating and doing learning design for companies, so designing learning experiences, and a lot of the exercises that I use come from the improv theater space, which is sort of how I got into comedy to begin with, performing. And then life happened and I couldn't perform as much and had a kid, and I couldn't do a show at 11 p.m. anymore. So pivoted into more satire and humor writing, and kind of had done personal essay stuff before that, also like Barbara. Had a blog back in the days of blogging. But so now I feel like it's combining everything that I really love. So humor stuff, writing stuff, making funny stuff up about people or the world, and sharing some of my own funny stories as well.
Okay. And you said something kind of interesting there. You said you had a blog. Are you not focusing on it as much anymore?
No, well, I had a blog about my dating experiences called
Oh,
The
okay.
100 First Dates, and I wrote about all of them, and that sort of launched into, well, I was just writing as a practice, and then people started reading it, and then I thought, okay, these are kind of funny. Thought maybe some of those experiences may go into a book of essays at some point, but that seems like a lifelong dream right now, because I'm not really working on that. I really do much better with shorter humor pieces.
Yeah, I find that that's something that is satisfying and that it can be done, if not at a setting, at least in a compressed period of time. How about you, Barbara? I mean, you work in short form. I know part of the reason you two are here is you've entered our contest here and distinguished yourself. So you do short form. Have you done any longer works, Barbara? Do you like that, or are you taking?
Well, I guess blogging doesn't count if you look at the whole compendium of my blogging experience. That was long.
Mhm.
No, I don't write long stuff most of the time. I mean, I've done academic articles. I've done lots of writing for businesses and newsletters, a lot of all sorts of writing, and taught writing to non-commissioned officers and all sorts of things. But I write short, I guess because I am short, but not in a bad way.
Okay. So, how did humor come to you then? I mean, did you take classes? Have you always been kind of playful in your approach to the world, or how does that work for you?
I think I probably always like to get a laugh. I taught English as a second language to adults part-time for nearly over 30 years. And I've done a lot of different things that require a sense of humor. I think living requires a sense of humor.
I
Um,
like that.
yeah. So I've always enjoyed laughing, and I love words. So I do a lot of punning, which doesn't cause laughter; it causes groans. But that's a recognition too. I guess as a small person, at least height wise, um, I wanted to be seen in some way, and I like to lighten the atmosphere. So even when I ran meetings, I found humor in it, almost everything, uh,
Hmm.
without being mean. So I don't know. I just like to laugh.
How about you, Lisa? Have you been that funny kid, or have you kind of grown into it by just reading books or trying things out? What has been helpful for you to get better at what you do?
Hmm. Yeah, it's only a couple different questions. I was definitely like more like a shy kid, and I read a lot, and then but like within my close friends, when I was being more authentic, I was probably making people laugh a lot, but never thought that it could be any professional or never thought it'd be for like broader audiences. Um, and so stumbled into improv because it was just like a kind of a sad time in my life. Other things were going on, like a breakup, and it was
Oh,
just kind of depression, honestly, which I think is a way a lot of people find outlets, but especially improv that I've met. And just started playing, and it was just so freeing and fun. So that's kind of how I stumbled into that. And then in terms of, oh, I wanted to, do more humor writing, I did take a few classes because I didn't really understand. I knew some of the tools are the same from playing and making up stories on a stage, but then how do you translate into writing? So that was very helpful to take a few classes and get, workshop the heck out of your work. It's important.
okay. So, was that improv something you did with friends, or did you just kind of go?
Oh, that was a bunch of classes. In New York City, I probably studied at every theater and then started getting on teams. Then you just keep doing it to get better at it. And that was for about like 10-ish years. And then, like I said, I sort of couldn't do that as much. Now I just sort of pop in and do drop-in classes because I feel like now doing that definitely informs my writing. Making up characters and other comedic outlets I think are super important to inform writing and
Okay.
creativity.
Okay. Now, Barbara, you were saying that you've taught English to as a second language
Yes, to adults.
people who
Mhm.
spoke English as their second language. I-
Or eighth language.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's just it. I admire people who are
Discriminate.
multilingual. That's really, you know the old joke where they call people that are speak three
Yes.
languages,
I
trilingual,
tell it
two
to my,
language,
I told it to my
bilingual, one language.
students every year. Yeah.
Yeah, one language. You know the joke. Well, how about a sense of humor sensibility? Because I mean, what that speaks to is you deal with people from, I have dealt with people from many different cultures,
Mhm.
and humor. How does that translate? I mean,
It doesn't always translate well.
yeah.
But I was always surprised. I taught Russian speakers for many years, from many different parts of the former Soviet Union. And their sense of humor is amazingly like ours.
Ah.
So they would get me, and I don't always tell jokes, but for example, I had a class and I showed a Mr. Bean clip on, because we were talking about medical vocabulary and going to the emergency room, and I showed one where this Mr. Bean, do you know him, Lisa, or is this before your time? Anyway, he had gotten his hands stuck in a teapot, and he was online waiting for attention, and there's a little girl and her mother about 5 people ahead, and he's very impatient, so he grabs the little girl's teddy bear, throws it, she runs out of line, the mother runs out of line, and he takes their place. And my students were shocked. They thought he was just such a terrible human being, and everything that he did, which was really underhanded, and mean, I thought it was hilariously funny, and they thought it was terrible. They didn't see the humor in it at all. So sometimes it does not translate.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm just curious for both of you what you have found. If you've take, I mean, we've heard it's been improv. There's other things, like in meetings, Barbara's done to try to liven things up. Have you found any resources, either print or sounds like classes, that if people who are tuning into this, if you had advice to give them, well, what could you do to kind of take it up a notch or two? What would you suggest? Why don't you start with you, Lisa? You've had improv
Sure.
classes. That any books? Any particular? We don't live in New York. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, there is improv everywhere these days, but yeah. So there's a couple books that I remember reading that I really liked. Truth in Comedy is a classic. It's basically the idea that you don't have to make stuff up to be funny. Like, you just observe and you look at real life, and that it's like, I think, theater and kind of improv related, but really it's about everything. And then TJ and Dave, who are a really amazing improv duo based out of Chicago, but they travel all over. And I think there's a documentary about them as well. They wrote a really great book about, like, I think it's called, I have to look these things up, but I think it's called Improvisation at the Speed of Life. And so that's like, it's talking about their process, but it really can be applied to, honestly, just human relationships and communication in general. So those are great. I did go to the Irma Bombeck Writers Workshop last year, which I think is every other year in Ohio. And I know they have some online programming as well, but there was a lot of speakers there. And then they had some books that I bought, a stand-up comedy writing book, which I don't do, but I would like to get better at jokes. So it was a nice workbook I bought. I think called the Comedy Bible by a woman, but I can't remember anyone's names
I
because
think
my
it's
brain
Judy.
just.
I think it's Judy Carter.
Yes, you got it. That's right.
Cool. I'm writing this down. You never stop learning is my motto. So,
Mhm.
Barbara, what did you do to kind of take your game up a bit?
I think reading is the key, and I do like Dave Barry. I loved Irma Bombeck. I like the New Yorker for some of its pieces and cartoons. Otherwise, I have not read any books on comedy writing or taken any classes, which I hope to do because I always want to get better. But I will say that teaching writing makes you a better writer, because I was teaching people that I was actually quite afraid of. I didn't know anything about the military, and it was during the first Iraqi, whatever you want to call it, incursion, whatever. And I did war. Yes, I didn't even want to go in, and they were people who didn't like writing because they thought it was just red marks on a paper that looked like a chicken had died. And I made that class fun for them. I got standing ovations, which you never get as a teacher. And that helped me to hone my writing a little, although I still need lots of honing.
Yeah, and we got a question directed to you, Barbara, that I'll give you a minute to reflect on it, but it asks if blogging took you away from other projects. One of our audience members said she found it really time consuming and wondered how you found a balance.
Well, I did it for about 5 years when I was abroad, and I took people who wanted to learn Spanish to Mexico to study at a school there.
Wow.
And I also took students to Mexico to do service learning. But I would write in the times that I had when I was not with everybody. I am a tremendous multitasker, which means that I'm not good at anything. But I had 9 part-time jobs at one point. So as long as I had my bag that said 9 o'clock Tuesday night, you'll be doing this. Take this.
I hope one of them was a sleep demonstration thing where you got to sleep on the job.
No, it was. I must have slept, but I don't remember that part. But I just did it because so many things happen when you're traveling. I mean, the first speaker of the day mentioned a lot of things that,
Yeah, Dave.
if you're open, you just observe things. And as a solo traveler, I could find the time to go into an internet cafe and just write. I did it for about 5 years. I am going to look back on that stuff and try to fashion it into a memoir or a book, because some of it is pretty funny, if I say so myself. And I also have something, Lisa. We're a different generation, but I went online to date after my 31-year marriage ended.
Wow.
And I was so ignorant of how to deal with that it was hysterical.
I'm sure.
And so I'd like to take some of the communications I got and responses I gave and fashion them into something.
I know that John Voorhouse, I met him 30 years ago at UCLA and was just blown away. And I have been a fan. I mean, that's why I keep looking him up, and I'm so thrilled. The reason I mention that is one of the first things he said in his class is, what is comedy? He said, it's truth plus pain plus distance. It's like,
That's right.
And when you travel, it's like so many things can go wrong that just aren't fun. But when you come home, you have stories to tell. So
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
At least it sounded like. I'm sorry. What's that?
I said, I think in retrospect, all the things that you suffer will result in some growth and some laughter. Maybe in some growth, maybe not. Maybe you just live to repeat things. I don't know.
Well, Lisa's shaking your head. I know when I asked her a few minutes back about kind of how she got into this, she talked about blogging through a difficult period, or blogging through a time of her life that was kind of interesting, let's say. And that a great euphemism, interesting. and the way improv kind of opened things up. Do you still improv, Lisa? Is that something? It's kind of time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in a team or anything like that, but occasionally I go to drop-in classes, which there's so many happening. So you can just pop in for any level.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah.
it's a scalable commitment. Well, one of the questions we saw here, if it's still here, Jillian asked how you build an audience in media, and I'm really glad that's asked, because that's something that I've gone from. I'm trying to expand where I cast my, bread upon the waters, and I'm wondering, well, how do you make Medium work? I have an account over there, but I don't know what to do with it.
That's a great question. And then, currently a lot of people are getting upset with Medium because you used to get paid for your stories that were only shown to members. And even just a year ago, I mean, for me, it's pennies, but even a year ago, it was like $6 worth of pennies for a story. And now they changed the algorithm and I'm getting like 6 cents. I mean, you're not in it for the money, but people are upset about that because some of them were actually like making like monthly income and like it was,
Oh yeah,
um,
it's
but
orders
I
of
think
magnitude.
I think I got something published. Like the first thing I ever got published was through the Belladonna Comedy publication, which is through Medium. So they're great. They're like women run, but humor for everybody. And so when you get it published through their site, then it shows up on Medium and you kind of have to have a profile. So you create your Medium profile, they publish it, but then it comes on your page. And so then I thought, well, why don't I just keep, and there's a lot of other humor publications that are via Medium as well. Like you submit, they accept it, and that's essentially you're being published by them, but it will be on your profile. So that's just where most of my things live. And then I just kept that as my portfolio. And then when I have things published elsewhere, I usually just like copy and paste. You can import links and it says, this was originally published at Insider or Canada's National Observer, and then people can read it. And then it's easier to gain more followers just saying go to this one spot, because I didn't want to work too hard. Honestly, I did not want to create another website and pay for another domain and all of that.
Right. A lot of
I do
work.
think people are concerned about owning the stuff. I mean, it's yours, but like of course it's not on your platform and not on your domain. So I don't really know much about if that's important to you or not. I mean, it's yours, but they have access to it, obviously. So
Well, there's not I'm not looking for a right answer here. I think
yeah.
one of the things that's obvious is there's many ways of being, many ways of being a human being in the world. There's many ways of being a writer. And if you're getting out of it what you want, it's like I have the luxury of being a teacher who's retired, and I like to get paid for what I do. I used to be a newspaper reporter before I was in teaching. And there's all kinds of sayings, don't nobody but a blockhead ever wrote for your writing should make you money. But, there's a lot of ways of finding satisfaction. I see you smiling there, Barbara. So I don't want to tell anybody you should or shouldn't do this, but it's interesting how people find their way, like both of you in contests. That's how, you came to our attention. And I'm wondering, is that something you do as a part of your routine, or once in a while you just say, well, what's out there? I mean, Barbara, how did we come to your attention? What do you enter a lot of contests or what?
That was the first.
Well, there you go.
I hadn't written anything for myself or that I wanted, that I enjoyed writing, although I enjoy all sorts of writing, but other than for work, I hadn't written for about 20 years. And I joined a writers group, maybe less than a year ago in this area in central Virginia. And the day before the deadline, I read their newsletter and I saw the contest.
Well, good for them.
So I wrote 2 things and called a friend of mine who has a great sense of humor. And I said, which one? And she said that one. And she was right.
Well, good for her. Yeah, and that's something we should talk about too. How did we come to your attention, Lisa? Do you enter contests, or was it once?
I don't remember. If you came up in Facebook or someone shared the contest and then the conference last year, but yeah, I heard all about it last year, and I think I was already working. I already had a couple essays that made sense to submit. So I don't usually write from scratch for a contest. I see what kind of matches, because I'm already interested in that piece, obviously, because I'm writing it. I don't really pull. Yeah, it's a little easier for me to do it that way.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. We have an afternoon, and I hope you can join us. But I know you're 3 hours ahead of us, Barbara. So, and Lisa's.
That's okay. I might
you may want to stay up late on our account.
Your fault.
We have a column writing panel this afternoon, and the 2 of the people there I know really well, and 2 we recruited. I belong to the National Column Writers Association, and I approached them, and they said, "We'll put it in our newsletter." And I've got a couple of folks that I'm really excited to have with. They've won a number of awards, and then the 2 I know are really competent journalist professionals, and one of them is a fellow named Mike Stefanovich, who wrote a wine column for 30 years and uses a lot of humor, writes biography, and the reason I mentioned him, and this is kind of directed at you, Lisa, is he has a body of work that I'm familiar with that he still owns. It's his. And I told him, I have been through the process of putting together Kindle books. Humor is such a tough sell sometimes. I'll throw myself under the bus. I, approached agent after agent. They look at stuff because I have a book in print about being a hyperactive kid. And it's got people who read it like it, but getting somebody to commit to investing money up front, I found it very to heck with it. I'm going to get this published through. It was Create Space back then. It's now just part of Kindle Publishing, and it's been a satisfying experience. Again, at least it's like these pennies here and there. It's not going to make me rich, but it's fun, and I know that process. So I told my friend Mike. I said, Mike, you've been a mentor to me because he was one of the senior editors when I first started. And very supportive and kind and funny and had great advice. And I said, I would love to help you put together a Kindle book or two out of what you're doing. And he got thinking about it. And he goes, well, it's kind of almost a history of the wine industry because some of these people have passed. Some of the wineries have changed hands. I said, I really feel like sometimes we have got to be our own advocates, and like you, Barbara, you have to have friends who say, yeah, this one. And so I'm hoping I can be there for my buddy and help him get some stuff together. I've been through that process. I know how to do it. Now this afternoon at I get my times right. I think it's 3:00 Pacific. A woman named Nancy Fulton, who is just amazing, is going to talk about if you have things in print and Kindle, how to use their free for a while, whatever, to build awareness of your body of work. And I realize this may not speak to where you are now, but I would encourage you, if you have collections of stuff, and I know it's good to always be moving forward and writing new stuff, but once in a while you need to believe in your stuff, like John Voras talked about, enough that you say, you know what, I'm going to pull this together and get it out there. So I would encourage you to think about that. And like I say, I'm not trying to sell paid service here. I'm just saying, like I told my friend I'd do it for free, and I certainly would talk to somebody, about advice I have. And one of my bits of advice that I ran into trouble with this. I had so much of some of my stuff out in blogs that initially they didn't want to publish it. I had to prove it was mine. And then they say, well, it's already available on the web. So just for what it's worth, any of you that are munching on a sandwich and listening to this chatter here, don't put everything out there. And that's why even though I'm offering to try to start kind of a peer group here on our blog for free, where you can trade pages, for crying out loud, make sure they're not hanging out there where some bot gobbles them up, or you might not even self-publish. So that's kind of thing. So I have to say, I'm trying to think how to ask this delicately. Well, let me throw myself under the bus. In my career as a writer, and I have a picture of me somewhere on my writing author page on Facebook of me at my typewriter when I was like 9 or 10, my first typewriter. So I've been writing a long time. And dealing with censorship a long time. I had a diary that was confiscated by my father. Careful. You really have to have diaries with locks that work, is all I'm saying. And but I've been, and I was a professional journalist, but there have been times in my life where I've gotten discouraged or busy or whatever, and just not written a lot. And so I would ask you, without being too personal, what do you do to if you're having trouble getting your keys and the fingers in the keyboard or whatever you do to inspire yourself to give it another shot, or is that not a problem for you? How about you, Lisa?
Well, it could go one of two ways. Get the hell out of the house, and I like to walk and hike and just do other things, or go to an art museum, like other things that will inform you as a human in writing about life, but it's not necessarily writing or reading. That's helpful. And then I do have to force myself after I've done that to say, block out time and say, write for 20 minutes at the most and see what happens and sit down, because I don't really have a routine. But I do try to do something every week. And when I don't always want to do it. And I hear myself talking myself out of it. So I sit down and say, all right, this is just 20 minutes. It's not a big deal. I start writing a piece. And then suddenly I hate it, or then I shift and I feel more excited about this. Or I think I wrote one funny line that might work, and then I'm like, great, 20 minutes is up. And if I want to go past 20 minutes, fine. But I feel like when you just schedule those really small chunks, then you meet the goal, then you get energized and you can keep going, or you cannot and say, all right, 20 minutes tomorrow, and that's fine.
Sounds good. How about you, Barbara? What do you do to get yourself back at it?
I have a deadline.
Ah,
The power of the deadline is tremendous for me. And when I was freelancing, I freelanced for multiple publications and at the same time newspapers. I had newsletters, I had all sorts of things. And I don't think I had time to breathe, but I always met my deadlines. And
Are you setting your own deadlines, Barbara?
well,
Now?
these were no, they were it's harder now that I'm retired, actually. Somehow I'm busy all the time. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but the day passes. I do a lot of traveling with my second, comma, best, and comma, and last husband. And I put that comma in, but I take it out when he's not acting the way I want him to. At any rate, we've been trying to make up for lost time. So I don't, I joined this writers group to kind of kick myself into getting back to it. So I'm not always good about it. I'm going to a writers retreat next weekend, and that's when I'm really going to start working, I think. But I'm erratic at this time because I don't have those deadlines.
yeah. Well, those conferences kind of cut into my daily page count, but it's like the thing I find with humor too is I used to be so productive when I had little kids around the house, and you could just write about what they were doing. And they're darn it, they grew up and they're in their 30s now, and it's harder to write about my life when a lot of my relatives are passing on it. It's kind of like you have to find different things to find amusing. And so I find I'm doing more writing about current events. My last few humor pieces have all been either political or current events, which wasn't what I used to do at all. If I've had to shift. So what topics do you find easiest to write about? I mean, Lisa, you said you had a blog on certain things and that time has passed. What do you enjoy writing about now?
That you just were talking about political things and satire. So I have a gig co-writing a satire column for the Canada's National Observer, and it's a progressive newspaper, and they're very focused on climate change, and that's a big issue for them. And so that is something that I usually did not get involved with politics or climate change, and sometimes it's very Canada focused. I don't live in Canada, but my co-writer does too, so I don't know sometimes who these people are. But we were doing climate change, climate anxiety, a piece coming out soon about the coal industry and making some jokes about that. But so it's a lot of like learning about this topic. And again, there's not really a deadline, but there's more of specific focus for that gig, which I think is fun because I'm learning a lot about real issues, and then like you get to make them funny. And then otherwise, parenthood is just an easy topic because my daughter's 4.5.
Yeah.
Marriage. I work a lot with like tech companies, so just kind of bro culture, and Elon Musk is a great character for anybody, so and workplace humor. So that's kind of comes easily to me because that's very relevant to my life.
Well, it sounds like a lot of things are drawn. That's great. So, Barbara, you mentioned you've traveled a lot. Is that still something that fuels your writing, or where do you get your ideas and what do you write about?
Well, in the past, it certainly did. And I just got back from Vietnam and Cambodia, but I don't remember anything funny that happened. It was just, it was too luxurious to be funny. I think there was no hardship at all. So there was nothing to work with there.
You need to stay at downscale hotels. I mean,
that's what I used to. I actually have a piece about the no-star hotel that I used to stay at all the time. But stay at all the time. But my husband likes more luxury, and we went on this fantastic trip. And no, it wasn't funny. I mean, I suppose that I'll write about my experience in Iceland, where on the first day we had a snowmobiling accident on top of a glacier. Ooh. I thought it would be safer than climbing up to the glacier because the snowmobile looked like it was on the ground, but it fell on top of us, and I broke my shoulder.
Oh no!
And that was our first day. So I'll probably write about that at some point.
And it quite literally was downhill from there.
It really
Sorry.
was. It really was.
I-
But Iceland is wonderful. I would go back. I just won't go near a snowmobile.
lesson learned.
They're dangerous.
Comedy is instructive. There you go.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's sure fun having you guys around here. I don't know quite what else to ask you. I kind of run through my list of questions. Is there anything that comes to mind that when you're doing comedy that you have a point? Well, Lisa's talked about, serious issues. I mean, bro culture and stuff could be fun, but I mean, things like global warming and stuff, which
Yeah.
are serious, but still bringing comedy to it or humor. How do you do that? How do you blend them?
Yeah, well, I feel like, one of the first kind of rules of humor or comedy writing or satire writing is like you need to punch up, and who is the group or the people that have the power, those are the ones you need to make fun of.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
in this case, all the industries or whoever's causing, I mean, it can be politicians, it could be a party, it can be organizations, companies, who's causing the harm that's very serious, and then often like wearing their hat where they're arguing like for the harm to be good, or like taking on their perspective, because I mean, you don't want to just like repeat the facts. I mean, that can be sad, but also not very funny. So like,
Right.
taking on the point of view of the people in the power, and making them just sound completely
So-
ridiculous.
So in terms of technique, and I apologize for not having seen some of your current writing. Do you like?
Better, Rob.
Do you
You
like?
better
I
read
know you're just going to log off right now. So do you write like faux memos or fake interviews where people are defending themselves?
Yeah.
This is wonderful. The joys of global warming. It's like you don't have
Faux
to be
memos. We just did a quiz recently, like a quiz format.
Mhm.
And I think the next, I do a lot of monologues too, or group monologues. So the next one that's coming out, sneak peek, is like a memo or like a news, a press release from the coal industry of
Okay.
Canada.
Now, is this a Medium or is this some of the place we could follow you?
So
Where we find this?
it will be printed first in Canada's National Observer on their website, which
National
you do.
Observer.
I think you can read like one article for free a month. and
Yeah,
you have to
I'm
pay.
an old journalism guy. I buy.
Okay.
I
Oh,
have a-
great. Well,
I
they
have a
would
half
love to
dozen
have.
news-
They told me
Is
they would
it
love
Canada or Canadian?
Canada's National Observer.
Observer.
They would love more American readers. They
Hey,
told
you
me
know
that.
what? Like I say, I used to back way back when I taught journalism. I would bring in my papers, the New York Times, L.A. Times, Sacramento Bee, and I bring them in and pass them around, have people look at them. I mean that was. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a part of the expense of being a teacher. So I
Yeah.
still do that. And I tell people, if you want to see coverage, you've got to have subscriptions for this. It'll go away. Anyway, off the soapbox. So your stuff appears there.
It appears there, and then usually within a week, I will put it on the Medium so more people can see it. But it publishes there first.
Mm-hmm. And that works. I mean, this shows you how much I know of Medium. That you can say this fast. Previously published pieces can appear a Medium, but you curate it so that you and your co-writer roll it out first in the Canadian.
Yeah, because Medium, it can be like a blog site where you can just type your own things and just publish them, or you can import a story from elsewhere, or if you get published on other publications, then it will go on their publication on Medium and then shows up to your site, if that makes sense.
Oh, so you can like have a feed over there, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So where would you hope to see your stuff appear, Barb? If we wanted to, are you just kind of here, there, and everywhere, or do you have a place?
Well, my aim, hopefully, is to have some books based on coming off the blog and other ideas that I have. And I would prefer to get paid for my writing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of work to do for free. And when I stopped writing for various publications, I mean, I made money writing for some national publications, but for the local stuff, I figured I was paying them to have them publish me because it took so much time for so little reward. So I would like to do a memoir, um, some books, and that's what I'm gearing towards, and hopefully I'll live long enough to be able to do this.
Well, I hope you do too. And I will tell you, we have a 5 o'clock agents panel, which you're welcome to
Right, I'm
hang
gonna
around
stay
for,
for the
come
whole
back.
thing. Yeah.
That we have 4 people on it. If you knock on wood, they all show up. One of them, it may be hanging out there now, is a really good friend and well, someone I admire and kind of a mentor. His name is Michael Larson, and he and his late wife represent a lot of really amazing authors out of the Bay Area. And
Mhm.
he's still active. I don't want to misrepresent what he said, but he said he will still look at material from with people who have books on some progressive social thing. Well, like climate change. I mean, maybe at least I can put you in touch with him. But he also has a book out there that it's like its 4th or 5th edition. It's on how to craft a book proposal, and the idea is for nonfiction. And nonfiction can be partially humorous. I mean, Bill Bryson, Mary Roach, and, but it's the idea is how do you come up with an idea and and see its viability. How do you assess the market? It'll talk about that. How can you pitch a book without going to all the trouble, like with a novel, of having to write the whole darn thing? And like a lot of nonfiction books, you write a sample chapter, you show the outline, you show some of your credentials to be able to write, and knock on wood, then you get picked up. And Michael can speak to that. So, and if you're not around to be able to watch, again, it should be recorded. I'd encourage you to look, and I'll make sure you have contact information for Michael. And the other 3 may will too. It's just that they will talk more about it. So we have a young woman who's an agent who is looking for a young adult, kind of eclectic mix of some kind of dark things, some themes that deal with also deal with relationships of transgender. I mean, she's really kind of interested in, and that's why I thought she was great. She's
Yeah,
really.
Rob, your audio. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Now it's
I'm
better.
probably talking too fast.
There we go. Okay.
Anyway, I would encourage you to check out, and I'm going to see if there's any questions over here. John, yeah, thank you. He's letting me know the audio has gone to heck. So, anything else you'd like to say about your writing? Anything we could do to help you? I mean,
I'd just like to add that I don't write about politics because when I even think about politics, my vocabulary devolves into 20 very colorful words that I probably can't say here, but interesting combinations of words too. But
yeah.
my husband, and we're soon to celebrate our 5th anniversary, said to me he hadn't realized that he'd married a potty mouthed sailor. So I don't do those kinds of serious topics, but I have dealt with some medical issues with some humor and some non-medical, like experiences with acupuncture to get over my fear of needles.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's been fun, and I think I'm thinking of submitting a story about that to another contest. So,
well, I wish you well. I know how it is. Medical things are, if you have enough distance, they can be interesting. How about you, Lisa? What can we do to be helpful to you as fans or as peers or anything come to mind?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Check out my stuff on Medium, read stuff. I don't know. Follow me there if you're on Medium.
I will.
And you'll also get,
I do.
I think you get a newsletter. You just started following me. Yeah, you get an email in your inbox if there's something new published, which honestly I don't do that often, but you don't always have to be on Medium. You can also just get like a ping.
Right.
But yeah, what Barbara was saying earlier about being in writing groups, that's like the answer to all things. You have to be in writing groups. They have to be feedback groups, people who maybe write humor already, or you're all learning together, and that's the only way to get better. And John was talking about taking feedback, and so it's so key. You will not get better, and not just your friends and family who are like, this is funny, and that's your first draft. Your first draft should never be the final draft. So please, just get with other people who are usually super supportive, and there's a lot of online groups, and just like, hey, can I advise on this? And I mean, that's the key, I think.
Have you
Where you
found
grow.
those on Facebook or in your immediate area in New York? Are you still in New York, right?
I'm in New York. I was in an in-person group, but that died of pandemic. I'm now
Yeah.
in a bunch of Facebook groups, and then we've moved over to Discord. I'm in a lot
Yeah.
of explicitly women's writer groups.
Okay.
So if you have a certain niche, or you could find that as well. They're very supportive. And I think some of them live on Slack, but there's so many people in it. You could do it ad hoc, or I'm in a regular group every week where if someone has something to publish or to put out there, there are like 3 or 4 of us will give feedback. And also when I'm not writing and feel sad, I just say, hey everyone, I want to give you feedback. Like I want to read other people's work, and then
Okay.
I get motivated.
Good for you. That's what it takes. I'm looking at a comment. Do you feel like there is a need for more humor writers groups for feedback? Lots of poetry, fiction. I I suspect. I mean, Lisa just
A
mentioned
need.
something that,
Like,
that I
yeah,
probably
there's a lot. There's
yeah
a lot.
on Discord. Yeah, I one of
Discord, yeah.
my 38-year-old daughter keeps saying you need to do more Discord, Dad. I have an account, I just haven't really taken advantage of it. That's part of why I started something here that people could pop in and share pages, but it's also no need to reinvent the wheel, as they say.
Yeah. Well,
So
Rob, do you want to be invited to our group where
I would be thrilled.
we exchange pieces? Because
Yeah,
I don't love new platforms. Somehow I got on Discord and Slack, but I didn't set it up. Someone else
yeah,
did. But yeah,
I would
yeah,
appreciate that.
Google and Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
check out Discord. That's as a matter of fact, I just took that's how I meet people. I'm always taking classes. I took a class that
Mm,
was available through Second City,
mm-hmm.
and it was in silly songwriting and writing humorous lyrics, and it was
That's
really
awesome.
cool. My teacher is one of the people in the afternoon, but they had a tool that they use, a portal that was very cumbersome. But what they were doing is some of the teachers and students had started some Discord servers to share Second City material for the students that are taking
Mm,
their online classes, and
okay.
that was helpful. That worked better than their portal.
Mm,
So that was helpful. Well, we're getting kind of well into this. I'm looking at some of the comments, other than my microphone not working well, which I'm thinking of flipping over to another mic, but I think it's talking slower. That's always been a note. I teach public speaking, or I did, and I know what my weakness is.
yeah.
I used to teach debate, and people would go, "You're a debate teacher. I bet your wife loves that." And I said, "Oh, I don't win arguments. I can generally tell you why I lost." Yeah.
I think Sandy asked about a traffic follower number. I have no answer to that. I think you just want to make sure that the people that are following you are not bots
Oh
and they're
yeah.
humans. Because if you do ever want to publish, all the publishers will say, or in your proposal, how many followers do you have? What is your audience like? I mean, you got to go sell yourself if you go the traditional route or the self-publishing route.
Yep. Yep. Well, and anyone I've talked to, when I ask, it takes time because it takes sincere interactions with people. You can't just
Mm,
spam, and I've been guilty of trying that. But that's why I decided, I had a long reflective process these past few months. I thought, well, what is success this humor conference? And we're up to almost 70 people. I thought, well, you know what? I would rather have 70 people that are serious about it, that may want to interact in a way that is helpful mutually to themselves and to others, not even me necessarily. And I have the luxury of retirement of not having to be quite so frantic. I take Barbara's comment, I seem to be busier than ever, partially because if something breaks, I end up over at somebody's house to fix it. I used to be too busy to do that. Now I'm not. So I appreciate your advice, your willingness to come and share with us. You are more than welcome to hang around, and we're going to get a Zoom link out later for the after party where you can actually see the faces and chat with some of these folks. I think we have contact information on you. I hope we do, that you can put into the chat. And if any of you are out there having trouble hearing with audio or whatever, uh, generally the recordings work okay. Sometimes it's the last leg of the trip. But if you have a question that occurs to you later, give it to me, and I will pass it along to Barbara or Lisa. And I just want to thank you for being here. I think it was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
So I'm going to go on and stretch my legs. And at 1 o'clock, we'll be back with John Vorhaus. And I think it'll be a little bit more of him really telling people what would you like to hear. So if you have any, I don't know if you caught him before, he's the author of the Comic Toolbox and has a lot of practical suggestions. That's what I admire about him. He knows how to teach comedy and humor. So hope you hang around. But if not, thank you for both.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
we will let you go. And I'm going to go on and get up here, stretch my legs, and let these good people head out here. If I can do this. Yeah. And get the right buttons to click. There we go. So it is 10 of 1 Pacific time. And it's kind of the end of the lunch hour. I'm going to go on and put up just a screen. I will be bringing everyone over in about 5 minutes or so. So if you wander off, you may get that link and reminder, hey, and here's what you need to do, move over. And that you just move it and groove it. We'll get you over there. So look forward to seeing everybody in a few minutes and being back with John. Thanks.